Alrighty, g'day guys, welcome to the Legion TD 3.46a changelog notes. So, this is the Dwarf race full release, so released a couple of days ago. I haven't actually played the full release version yet, I've been a bit busy. But yeah, we'll get around that in the next few days. Anyway, just go through this real quick, talk about what's sort of going on with it. Get out of here. So, obviously, we've got the new Dwarf race, lever, flag, timer. I don't know what that means, just whatever. Anyway, first change King Spell Immolation. So, reduce the initial damage by 2.5 per second, but it gets 0.4 damage per second for each level of King you attack you upgrade, but doesn't get better by level. So, on level 7, which is the main Immolation level, really, this would be 9.1. So, about 8 attack. 8 attack and Immolation's basically where it was before. So yeah, it just makes it a little less polarizing on 7. I don't know how it goes into the mid game, because Immolation generally wasn't a particularly strong scaling spell. It was just about that big level 7 potential power spike. So we'll see how that goes. Potentially it's even a little weak actually, but it'll be interesting to see how it goes. Suppose I should probably do the maths on it at some point about how it looks like level 14 with 30 attack, but anyway, it's a good change, I think. It just makes Immolation a little bit less polarizing. And it's obvious. Then the nice thing about changes like this, Ryder, if no one likes it, if we feel like, oh yeah, Immolation fucking sucks now or whatever, it's really easy to just kick the numbers around a little bit and see what sticks, So I like it in general though. A couple of bug fixes, yeah, all good. Okay, so the send splitting system got a little bit of a rework. So what happens now is basically with all your sends, they're distributed more evenly at the same time, right? Because the send timers mucked with the distribution a bit. So now this means that you can't send like assassins late after the tanks have slotted in, right? You can't send assassins late on the same level. But it should mean you don't have those silly send splits, which do happen occasionally. So this should be a lot better, hopefully. But we'll see how that goes. As I said, I haven't actually played a game with it yet. But hopefully it's all looking good. Anyway, next up. Ancient Tree. Spell immune. Fuck yes, Ancient Tree. It's probably not enough to actually make it good, unfortunately. But, maybe at some point in like a super fat send every level pub style game, Ancient Tree will start being a bit strong, we'll see. Muggle, 25 less HP. It's like, yeah, sure, I think that's a good change. Muggle's pretty hard for the king to kill. Generally, like, a pretty solid send overall. Even though it is expensive, it's pretty strong. So yeah, I don't mind kicking a little HP off it. Then the damage reduction aura now properly doesn't work against Thornmail, which is really good, because Murgle against Thornmail is just painful. Like, Thornmail's struggled enough in the early game without Murgle stitching it up more. So yeah, apparently this was working, but just wasn't taking into account the armor reduction properly. But now it is, so it's fixed. Job's on tick, happy days. Firelord, attack time increased, so less attack speed on the Firelord. We'll see how this translates. Realistically, should be most noticeable level 15. Then not as much of a big deal basically every level after that, but it's definitely a nerf. So we'll see if 15 is a little more skippable. Because not only is that a nerf on all the lanes, that's a reasonable amount of king damage just lost. So we'll see. I don't imagine this will like fully change the meta or anything. It doesn't seem like enough of a change for that, but we'll see. See if 15 feels easier to hold, potentially easier to skip. That one interests me. Right, Mutant. Slower range increased, and movement speed reduction increased. And honestly, the problem I have with Mutant is still that it's just so fat and slow and doesn't really walk very effectively. So it feels like even on a range level, the melee stuff's gonna get to the creeps before the Mutant does anything. But I don't know, maybe against things like Time Stealer it could be good. Maybe. I'm skeptical, but these are starting to look like pretty damn strong numbers, so if it's not strong like this, like if this version of Mutant isn't strong, then it's probably almost never going to be, So we'll see. We'll have to try it. Tried it like once or twice on like 10 with this version, but I didn't feel that wonderful. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Hopefully it's good. Alright, Ranger. So this is the Ranger like Send buff. Movement speed and attack speed bonus from 0.8% to 0.9%. So your Sends get slightly more movement and attack speed. Maybe that almost neutralizes this nerf to Lord. Nah, it shouldn't quite do that, but it'll combat the nerf to Lord specifically to some relatively small extent. So that's also something to take into consideration. And then yeah, damage bonus from Assassin Sends 0.6 flat plus 0.7% to 0.7 flat plus 0.8%. So the Sends, basically, the Send buffs got a bit stronger on the damage and attack speed, so the DPS Sends. So yeah, that's cool. We'll see how that works. It's like, I guess it's a shadow nerf or not a shadow nerf. What do you call it? It's like this has changed, which because like rangers and assassins got better, then the tanks got worse. So it's like an indirect nerf. That's the word I'm looking for. An indirect nerf to like Verbolg, Militia, Horse, all this stuff. Maybe we start seeing more like ghouls on 10. Don't know. Maybe. Probably not, but maybe. That'll be interesting to see. So units, Ryder, gold cost increased by 10. I mean, this is good. Ryder's just a little too easy to overbuild with. The thing is, I don't even think that the problem is Ryder is like so incredibly strong. It's just Ryder is so incredibly flexible in the sense that it's like yes, it's good. Its stats are quite good. It's strong on 7, blah blah blah. It does a lot of damage. Like yeah, okay, sure, that's fine. It's not this insane unbreakable unit, right? Like, yeah, if someone wants to be 3-0 on 7 with Riders, then you probably won't break them, but if someone wants to be 3-0 on 7 with Harlots, you probably won't break them, right? And I would say they're approximately as useful as each other in the mid-game. The thing about Ryder is, because the increments are so convenient, right, with 110 gold, previously now 120, right, it's a lot easier to, instead of being 3-0, it's like, oh, I can get to 3-1, 4-1, 5-1, and it's easier to push and push and push, right? And because they're efficient, and they don't really have like particularly weak levels like Harlot does. Harlot's quite weak on 4, for example, so it's hard to push for level 4 if you're playing Harlot. Right, Ryder, it's a lot easier. So just because the increments are so low, it lets you get a lot of extra push, perhaps more than you deserve with the unit, and then hold efficiently with higher push than you'd expect. And I think that's where the real strength of the unit is. So this 10 gold is definitely relevant, kicking that down. We'll see if it's enough. I mean, I think it will still be quite prevalent and probably relatively strong, but it should hopefully be just reined in a little bit. So you gotta remember, the unit just falls off a cliff after 10, and it's not even particularly good on 10, so it's somewhat weak 8 as well, actually. So yeah, I think this is, I mean, it's a good change. We'll just see if it needs like another little kick in the right direction, but I like this for now. Alright, Dark Mage, Mind Warp, attack speed increased, decreased, blah, both just 3% across the board. That's totally fine. Dark Mage is real good. It's still going to be real good. It's just slightly less real good, you know? Not much to say. It's good nerf. Dark Mage is pretty damn strong and will continue to be pretty damn strong. Butcher, Plague Aura damage reduction decreased from 20% to 14%. The range is decreased as well. That's kind of a lot. That's kind of a lot. Well, definitely, I think that'll definitely make Butcher noticeably worse on 10 in particular. I think especially on level 10. You'll feel that a bit where it's like the 4 Butcher lanes or whatever on 10 are going to struggle a lot more than before. Which is a good thing in my opinion. Butcher shouldn't really be anti-10. It doesn't have to be bad on 10, it still won't be bad on 10. It'll just be probably not a case of going 4 Butchers for 10 every game and turning a brain off. And, you know, it's obviously a general nerf going forwards into the game, which I think is a good thing. The unit's really good. It's still going to be quite strong, it'll just be a little less oppressive, because honestly it felt a little bit oppressive to play against the Butcher lane, with even just like a little bit of magic damage for 15 and like an aura. It's just like, oh, guess he's mid every level, you know? So I like this change. But yeah, that's what I was saying in some video. I think one of the dwarf testing ones. That it's like it's kind of hard to pin down what makes Butcher good, you know? Is it this Plague Aura? Is it the HP suck effect? Or is it just the stats? You know, it's hard to tell. So the devs reckon it's the aura that was given it the strength. We'll see how this change feels, and we'll see if we reckon they're on the money, or if maybe it needs a little more or even a little less. Anyway, Dragon Aspect, Melt Armor, so that's the change enemy armor type to unarmored. Area of effect increased from 400 to 440. It's a nice little change. I mean, you still... thing about Aspect is like you're going to build it in the exact same spots you were before, because this doesn't increase the damage, it's just increasing the AoE of the change armor type. So whenever you thought about building Dragon Aspect before, you're going to think you're going to be just slightly happier about building it now. Pretty minor change, but you know, it's good. I think the unit was already okay. It was pretty niche, but okay in spots where it made sense. So it's just going to make it a little bit better in those spots, which I think is all right. Anyway, Parasite provides 70 HP, 4% attack speed, which I believe used to be there's either 60 or 80 HP. I forget. Used to be 6% attack speed. I think it might have been 60 HP, 60% attack speed. But now it gives 10 damage per second. So what does 10 damage per second mean? Well, the idea is what the devs have done is gone like, okay, we're going to like calculate the DPS of every unit, and whenever it gets a Parasite, that DPS just has like plus 10 tacked on the end, right? So it's not going to give like 10 damage on an auto attack for an elite archer. It's going to give like 1 damage for elite archer, right? But it might give, I don't know, 5 damage for Butcher, for example, because it attacks more slowly, it doesn't have the multi-shot. So the idea is this should just give 10 DPS to every unit. I believe there's like a couple of kinks with the DPS still, with some units, things like Engineer I've heard. Not sure exactly, but we'll see how that goes. But overall I like it, you know, it's a cool change. Parasite is still going to be strong. Same deal with the upgraded Parasite as well. This gives 50 DPS instead. Nothing wrong with that. Anyway, Outcast. Attack time reduced, so a little bit more attack speed. I mean, it's nice, but you're still not going to see Outcast very often. There's not really a reason to build it. Almost all the time. Very occasionally you'll build it, but it's fairly irrelevant. The second one, damage increased by 3? I don't know. I haven't actually really had an opportunity to build the second one in a spot where I thought it made sense. So I don't know. I feel like it needs more, but I also don't really know how strong the unit is right now, I'll be honest, so we'll see. Maybe this changes an increment on some level with the like reflect damage or something, I'm not sure. But hopefully we can actually get it built in a game and see how it looks. Alright, Privateer, range, pistol, attack time increased. Okay, Privateer, real small nerf, that's totally fine. I don't see a problem with that. Privateer's pretty good. It's still going to be pretty good, it's just going to be like very slightly less good. Abno, Venom, Sack time increased, so the arena's 5 seconds, creep waves. Okay. Just making the bugs from the abnormality slightly better. I like that. Mouth was still feeling pretty fine, but the actual upgraded Abno felt like a little bit weak, so this should just help it out a little bit. So I like it overall. It's a pretty minor change, but it should just help out actually upgrading the Abno. Oh, sorry. Excuse me. Battleship, visual update, cool. Mutant, bug fix. Jeez, that's old. Okay, all good. A couple of bug fixes, you can read those yourselves there. Somewhat simple, and then yeah, cool. Happy with those. Alright, new units, Dwarf 2-1 Rat. Okay, so you put a rat down, has those stats, costs 30 gold. And then ability, you can get another rat for another 30 gold on the same spot without taking an extra tile. Cool. Kappa told me that there is something special that happens when you get all the rats. So hopefully I will be able to get all the rats in the near future when I actually play some games. Next, Dwarf Fighter. Believe that HP went down from when I showcased it. So I think that's a good thing, but we'll see how it goes from here. I imagine the unit will still be relatively good, but hopefully just slightly less strong. Next, Barbarian, that's the upgrade. So yep, we've seen that. Cool. Rifleman, as far as I know, it's basically the same. Sniper, as far as I know, basically the same. Apprentice, big change here. So the turret, I believe the change was it summons way less turrets, but the turret is stronger, and I think the turret can actually move. I know it says immobile, but I believe the turret can actually move now. I'm not certain, but I believe it can move, or at least it will move to mid. So yeah, overall this is just to reduce like this fucking spammy turret, you know, which was like interesting, but was like maybe a little silly. Generally, like talking to Kappa a little bit, it was like, yeah, we didn't really like the turret spam sort of identity of the unit. So basically the turret is better, but there are less turrets, and I think that's fine, right? It's probably better, honestly, just for readability in the game. Generally less lag if it runs late, so I think that's good. Blacksmith, believe this is pretty much the same, obviously with the same change on the ability. And then yeah. So every third time smithing is used, there's no smithing target, cooldown reduced by 50%. Fair enough. So yeah, this smithing buff as well, I believe you can, yeah, so you can pay 50 gold to make this like buff ability better, which will decrease the cooldown by 3 seconds 3 times. So yeah, if the turret is stronger, you're probably more incentivized to smash some gold into that upgrade and see how that does. We'll see, I haven't played enough with the upgraded turret guy to figure out if that's actually worth spending the gold for. Anyway, Monk. Each attack heals by 10 HP, increases the max HP permanently by 1, and maximum of 400 bonus HP. Cool. Yeah, these stats, like, seems like a pretty solid unit overall. Potentially a little strong, but we'll see. Then Berserker. Additional attack damage based on the missing HP, so presumably more damage when he's low HP. Fits the Berserker theme. Resist death for anywhere between 5 and 2 seconds, depending how long the unit survives. So if it survived for a long time, it'll have the 2-second invulnerability. If it's getting blown up close to immediately, it'll have more like 5 seconds. Cool ability, cool unit. It's like egg sack that fights back, I suppose. But no, it seems like a pretty strong unit. Alright, Dwarf King. Here we have the stats. So like, honestly, slightly underwhelming stats, I would say, for 315 gold. Not the tankiest, but this is a pretty decent ability, especially early on. I'd really like to try this, just reading the ability. Really like to try this with like bottom feeder and grabbing it really early and seeing how that feels. I'll definitely have to get that going in a pub game, or maybe an FPG, maybe not Lil, unless I think it's really strong, but I'll try it first somewhere else. But yeah, it's like a pretty decent ability early on. Otherwise, I think the unit, just stats-wise, is a little bit underwhelming, but the ability is not bad. Adds a lot of damage. So if you can keep them alive and keep smacking that ability off, I think you'll do alright. Just the HP total is slightly concerning for me. Although, you know, it's also not a terrible HP total. Alright, then the upgraded tier 6, which is the last thing. These stats, 350 gold upgrades, so 665 gold cost total, so he's expensive. In terms of actual auto attack damage, that's relatively low, I would say. But yeah, the ability, Odin's Blessing. Every 20 seconds, you generate a storm, creating 6 lightning strikes over 2 seconds, doing 220 magic damage, 350 range. Okay. If the unit dies, strikes a new target. I did try a few of these on level 15. I'll say, like, 3 of these knock through the centaurs pretty quickly. I was relatively impressed with that ability. One thing I don't like, I did speak with Kappa a little bit about this. In his view, so one thing I don't like is that when it uses this ability, it has a cast animation. So for those 2 seconds, right, that he's casting doing the lightning strikes, he'll just stop and channel and won't auto attack, won't move. So personally, I've got the view of I would like him to keep auto attacking, you know, do 2 of these auto attacks in that time, right? Which are, you know, not massive amounts of damage, but do 2 of those auto attacks in that time. Gappa's feeling was that it kind of likes that it stops and stays maybe a little bit further behind, because I believe it actually has 180 range, if I recall correctly, when you upgrade it. Could be wrong. I might be wrong and that might be wrong, so we'll double check that, but I believe it has 180 in the end, which was potentially changed at some point after this. So yeah, to like try and keep it alive for a second cast, I'm feeling like though, the thing is, because this is flat damage with no utility, so I'm not excited about this spell. And it's not AoE either, so I'm not excited about this spell like into the late game, you know, into the end game. Like on 21, I'm not excited about this spell. On 28, I don't care about this spell, you know? And then on sort of like level 15, where I actually think the spell is pretty good, I don't really think you're ever going to get this unit to cast its spell twice on your lane, and it be a good thing, if that makes sense. I could see it maybe if you had a really tanky setup with like Butcher, Ziggs, Goliath, Highborn, Elder Witch Dock, this sort of thing. Maybe it's a second cast would hit like 2 centaurs and a couple of sends, but at that point it's not even good because it sends a spell immune. So personally, I would rather just smack the couple of auto attacks in, get a bit of extra damage, let him function as frontline, let him be a little bit better on 14 as well. That way, rather than do that cast. But we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out, obviously. I've only really tried it that once, but I didn't like the look of the unit stopping personally. I wanted to see him keep smacking a couple more times, get the damage in, let him frontline a little bit better. But yeah, so that's wrapping it up for the Dwarf update. Obviously, any questions, shoot them down below. I'll try and answer them. And yeah, for now, just stay tuned for more. Hopefully, I'll have a bit of time in the next couple of days. It's a little bit challenging, but yeah. Cheers very much for watching, guys. Appreciate it. Like, subscribe, all of that, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.